will keep our videos. Okay, so we were studying on the contribution of different scientists in the field of immunology. Now, today we are going to study on another such person whose name is Paul Ehrlich. Okay. So Paul Ehrlich, he was born in the year 1854 on March 14 in Prussia, and then he died in the year 1915 on August 20th. He was a German medical scientist, and he was known for his work in hematology, immunology, and chemotherapy, and for his discovery of the first effective treatment for syphilis. Syphilis is a bacterial infection, and it is a sexually transmitted disease, and the treatment for this disease was discovered by Paul Ehrlich. Then he received the Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine in the year 1908, but the award was a joint award which he had received along with Elie Metchnikoff. Now let us study a little bit on the early life of Paul Ehrlich. Paul Ehrlich was born into a Jewish family, which was a business and industry-oriented family. Then although he lacked formal training in experimental chemistry and applied bacteriology, he was introduced by his mother's cousin, who was a pathologist named Carl Bigard, to the technique of staining cells with chemical dyes, a procedure used to view cells under the microscope. Okay, so you must have studied in your first semester about how we perform microscopy, how the staining procedure is done in order to observe the cells. So this particular method of staining a cell to observe them under the microscope is a very old process, and it was introduced to Paul Ehrlich by a pathologist whose name was Carl Bigard. Carl Bigard was his relative, his mother's cousin. So as a medical student at several universities, including Breslau, at Strasbourg, Freiburg, and Lippes, Ehrlich continued to experiment with cellular staining. At that point of time, he started learning about cellular staining. So he did a lot of experiment with cellular staining. The selective action of these dyes on different types of cells suggested to Ehrlich that chemical reactions were occurring in cells, and these reactions form the basis of cellular process. So by this process, by experimenting on various processes of cellular staining, Paul Ehrlich, he came to know that these stains, they had effect or chemical reactions on the cells, and which led to some kind of reactions, and those reactions, it formed the basis of the cellular processes. And from this idea, he found out that chemical agents could be used to heal disease cells or to destroy infectious agents, a theory that revolutionized medical diagnostic and therapeutics. Now we know that chemical agents are used in order to treat certain infections, so that infections get healed easily or very quickly. For example, chemicals such as iodine is used for treatment of some infection. Yes or no? So this kind of this theory that chemicals can be used was found out by Ehrlich, Ehrlich, he was able to find out the idea that these chemicals can be used for treatment or healing of disease cells. And how did he come to know? When he started experimenting on these cells. When he performed this cellular staining, in the process of cellular staining, he saw that some cells, if they were damaged, they used to get recovered whenever he used such chemicals on those cells. So this is a discovery that he had done at that point of time, that if we want to heal any cell or treat any cell, any disease cell, then we can use chemical agents on them in order to treat them. Then after receiving his medical degree from the University of Leipzig in 1878, Ehrlich was offered a position as head physician at the prestigious Charité Hospital in Berlin. There he developed a new staining technique to identify the tuberculosis bacillus that has been discovered by the German bacteriologist Robert Koch. So Robert Koch, he had discovered this bacteria responsible for causing tuberculosis. The name of the bacteria was Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Now, this bacteria, though, has been discovered by Robert Koch, but there was no technique to identify the bacteria. So, like if a person was diagnosed of symptoms of tuberculosis, but there was no way how you can identify that yes, that person was actually suffering from tuberculosis. There need to be some staining techniques. So, though there were several other staining techniques that was discovered previously, but those staining techniques could not help in the identification of tuberculosis. And then Paul Ehrlich, he developed a new staining technique which helped to identify the tuberculosis bacillus. Okay. And then Ehrlich, he also differentiated the numerous types of blood cells of the body and thereby laid the foundation in the field of hematology. We know that there are different kinds of cells in blood cells in our body. It's not only the RBCs which are present, there are different kinds of WBCs also. So all of these cells are different from each other, but those cells were not studied before, they were not identified before, and it was Ehrlich who helped in differentiating the numerous type of blood cells. There are so many types of blood cells now, so all of them were identified and differentiated by Paul Ehrlich, and that eventually led to the foundation for the field of hematology. What is hematology? Hematology is the science that deals with the study of blood. Okay, hem means blood. So the study of blood is known as hematology. Then while developing new methods for the staining of live tissues, Ehrlich discovered the uses of methylene blue in the treatment of nervous disorder. So Ehrlich was continuously studying and experimenting on different staining techniques. He was trying to find out if the different staining techniques would help in any kind of treatment, if any kind of healing of cells. So eventually he also discovered that if methylene blue is used, it can help in the treatment of nervous disorders. In other diagnostic advances, he traced a specific chemical reaction in the urine of typhoid patients, tested various medications for reducing or removing fever, and made valuable suggestions for the treatment of eye diseases. Then, then we will come to the main part, that is we need to study on the immunology or the contribution of the scientists in the immunological aspect, that is with immunity. So how did Paul Ehrlich contribute to immunology? Once what happened, Paul Ehrlich, he was suffering from tuberculosis. And when he suffered from the disease, it interrupted his work and he had to go to Egypt in order to treat himself from this particular infection. Then after getting cured of it, he returned back to Berlin in the year 1889. And at that point of time, the disease was permanently gone. Then after working for some time in a small laboratory, he moved himself, he transferred himself to Koch Institute for Infectious Disease. And then in that institute, he concentrated completely on the problem of immunity. Because at that point of time, people did not know what is immunity. Very little was known about it. People did not know that our body constantly keeps on fighting with various kinds of diseases, how our body fights with this bacteria or viruses that enters our body. Nobody knew about the defense mechanism in our body. So Paul Ehrlich, he concentrated only on that topic, on the problem of immunity. So that why certain people can fight against some diseases, why some people cannot fight, how different the immune defenses differ from person to person, all of this. Then the hypothesis that Ehrlich developed during his study, he found out a hypothesis. Hypothesis means a theory that one says that it may be possible. You have to prove that. Before proving something, when you give a statement, that statement is called hypothesis. Okay, so Paul Ehrlich, he also had a hypothesis. He developed a hypothesis which was to explain immunological phenomena was the side chain theory, which described how antibodies, that is the protective proteins produced by the immune system, are formed and how they react with other substances. So that is what he said. He said what? He said he was talking about a side chain theory. Now, side chain theory was related to antibodies. And what he was trying to say that this hypothesis was about the antibodies, how the protective proteins, which is produced by the immune system. Our immune system, they produce some proteins. And those proteins he called as protective proteins, which are related to the antibodies, how they are formed and how they react with other substance. So this was his thought, his idea. Then he took this idea and then he delivered it to the Royal Society in 1900. This theory was based on an understanding of the way in which a cell was thought to absorb and assimilate nutrients. That means, our cell constantly keeps on working. So our cell will also absorb, where will the nutrients go? How will our body get the nutrients? We eat food, but how our body is getting the nutrients from the food? It's not that the nutrients are directly just knowing its track, it will enter into some part of the body. It's not like that. Some cells have to absorb those nutrients, isn't it? So those cells, what they do, they once our food get digested, then the nutrients are absorbed and taken up by the cell of our body. So Ehrlich again postulated that each cell has on its surface a series of side chains or receptors that function by attaching to certain food molecules. Okay, so what he was trying to say that our cells on the like, for example, in the cells present in the stomach, what they do, they have got some chains or they have got some receptor. Receptor means something which accepts a thing. For example, if I take a lock, the lock has a place where you can put in the key. So that area where you can put inside the key, that particular area of the lock is called a receptor. The key is binding to the receptor. So you cannot use any key to put into any lock. It is specific to each other. A particular lock will have a particular key only. Okay. So likewise, the cells, certain cells, they also have got some receptors, and their function is to attach to certain food molecules. They will not attach themselves to anything else. They will attach, those receptors will help in attachment to only food molecules. While each side chain interacts with a specific nutrient in the same manner as a key fits into a lock. So the example that I had given to you just now. So the same way how a key fits into the lock, similarly, a side chain will interact with a specific nutrient. It also can interact with other molecules such as a disease-causing toxin produced by any infectious agent. So this was all. This all were the hypotheses that was given by Paul Ehrlich. Okay. Now, when a toxin binds to a side chain, the interaction is irreversible and blocks subsequent binding and uptake of the nutrients. Now, what happens? See, he was telling that the cell always binds to a food or to a nutrient so that the nutrient can be absorbed. Yes. Now, what happens? Sometimes, instead of binding to a nutrient, that particular receptor of the cell gets bind to a toxin. Toxin is a poisonous substance that is released by different bacteria. So bacteria may release a toxin and somehow that receptor binds to toxin. Maybe the key, I was telling that the lock and key is always specific to each other. So you might be also thinking that how come the shape of that toxin is so similar to the nutrient that it could bind to that receptor. Now there might be a possibility that the toxin has got similar, that particular, not all, that particular toxin which actually was bound to that receptor had similar kind of shape to that nutrient that actually takes the place. So that is why it went and got bound itself to that particular receptor. Now, once it got bound to that receptor, what will happen? Now, the way for the nutrient got blocked. Now, the nutrient cannot be taken up by that cell. Okay, so it's obstructing the way. It is obstructing the chain, the side chain. The body then tries to overwhelm that obstruction by producing a great number of replacement side chain. So many that they cannot fit on the surface of the cell and instead are secreted into the circulation. Okay, so that is our body is trying. Now the body understood that our nutrient is not getting absorbed by the body because of some toxin that has taken its place. So now they will have to find out some other way to get the nutrient into the body. So what they do, they will try to secrete more and more of this particular side chain on the inside the like in the body, and sometimes what they do, they directly secrete them on the circulation, that is the blood circulation. So this is actually not the fact. This is a theory that was given by Paul Ehrlich. You should not think it in a way that it is actually happening. That is how the body works. No, this was a theory that was Paul Ehrlich. That was Paul Ehrlich, like he had given. Okay, so according to Ehrlich's theory, these circulating side chains are the antibodies. So he said that these are the actually antibodies who are working in our immune system, which are all goes to and able to neutralize the disease-causing toxin, and they remain in the circulation, thus immunizing the individual against subsequent invasion by the infectious agent. So that means the antibody is playing its role, that it's able to neutralize the disease that is being caused by the toxin, and then how the infectious agents are being destroyed and all. So a lot of debate had gone during this hypothesis. People did a lot of debate on that. But what happened ultimately? This theory that he had given was proved to be incorrect. It was not accepted in many particular ways. But then how? Yet though it was incorrect, how why? Like is it told that he play like very important role in the contribution of immunology? Because it is because of his theory people started thinking in that way. Okay, though he was incorrect in many particular ways, but he had a very great influence. His work had a big influence on his successors. Successors means the people who came later on afterwards. So Ehrlich was able to show experimentally that those things. He also later on did many other experiments that rabbits subjected to a slow and measured increase of toxic matter were able to survive 5,000 times the fatal dose. Okay, so he had done an experiment on rabbits where he found out that if toxic matter was induced into rabbit, they were subjected to slow death. They were able to survive 5,000 times the fatal dose. In the end, he established precise quantitative patterns of immunity. Then in the year 1890, all of these findings, he got a great importance from all these findings, especially when he met this particular person called Emil von Behring, who had succeeded in creating an antitoxin against diphtheria. Now, diphtheria is again a bacteria which releases some toxins, and those toxins, they are responsible for causing the disease. So Emil von Behring was a person who had developed an antitoxin against diphtheria. Behring had tried to prepare a serum that could be used in clinical practice, but it was only by adopting of Ehrlich's technique of using the blood of live forces that the preparation of a serum of optimum antitoxic effectiveness became possible. So how did Ehrlich's technique help Behring? What did he do? So Behring had prepared a serum. Serum is made from blood. Okay, so it is we centrifuge the blood and then we separate the serum. Okay, the liquid part. Now that serum, which was used for clinical practice, but how did he prepare it? He had used that serum for preparing the antitoxin for diphtheria. So it was Ehrlich's technique. What technique of Ehrlich that he used to prepare the serum? He used blood from live horses in the preparation of the serum. Okay, so then after that, which helped him in the preparation of this antitoxic or antitoxic agent, and the effectiveness could be found using this particular serum. Ehrlich developed a way of measuring the effectiveness of serum that was soon adopted all over the world for the standardization of diphtheria serum. Now, how this particular serum was used, or what was the method that was adopted to use this serum, was again told by Ehrlich. Here, it has not been mentioned how actually the method was implemented, but then the method was also developed by Ehrlich, who had helped in the development of the serum and in finding out the way how the serum can be effective, or how the people, they started adopting the method that actually Ehrlich had developed for the standardization of the diphtheria serum. He also demonstrated in 1892 that antibodies are passed in breast milk from mother to newborn. Okay, then on the basis of these achievements, Ehrlich was made the director of a government-supported institute near Berlin, which was transferred to Frankfurt then in 1899 as the Royal Institute for Experimental Therapy. While this corresponded to Ehrlich's own talents and inclination, then there were, again, politics and also Behring, he did not like it that Ehrlich got all the appreciation. So it did not please Behring, who endeavored to have his colleagues specialize in immunology and serum therapy. The strained relationship between the two men was exacerbated by personality differences. Ehrlich, utterly indifferent to monetary rewards, had no ambition to become an industrialist. He was content to carry out his research. So Ehrlich was not so much fond of this monetary rewards and all. He only wanted to carry out his research and help and extend his help towards humanity. So he had, he just carried on his research without demanding anything. He had by then recognized the limitation of serum therapy. Many infectious disorders, in particular, those caused by protozoa rather than bacteria, failed to respond to serum treatment. So he had actually thought that serum therapy could be useful. They could provide, prepare these antitoxins using serums and then help in the treatment. But then this serum treatment did not show good response. Then more than bacteria, it was protozoan infection that did not work at all when serum treatment was given. The recognition of this fact marks the birth of chemotherapy. Chemical therapy was then started at that point of time. Ehrlich started experimenting with the identification and synthesis of substances not necessarily found in nature that could kill parasites or inhibit their growth without damaging the organism. Okay, so then Ehrlich again, he started his experiments, and then in his experiments, he found out that everything that is found in nature was not necessarily helpful in killing the organism. So he also started synthesizing some artificial things, and that could kill parasites or inhibit their growth without damaging the organism. He began with trypanosome. Trypanosome is a parasite. It's a species of protozoa that he unsuccessfully attempted to control by means of coal tar dyes. Then there followed compounds of arsenic and benzene. Other compounds proved to be too toxic. Instead of declaring himself vanquished by these difficulties, Ehrlich turned his attention to the spirochete Treponema pallidum, the causal organism syphilis. So initially, I told you that he had actually found out a treatment for syphilis. So he was trying to find a treatment to kill protozoa, and where he was trying to use different chemicals to kill them. But then what happened? He was not successful in his attempts. He used different chemicals, but then sometimes the chemicals were too much toxic. So instead of killing the organism, it also had effect on the host who was carrying the parasite. So that is why he was not successful in that. But then though he was unable or he was unsuccessful in this attempt, he did not leave his hope. He changed his his topic of interest to a different organism. So from the parasites, he turned himself to another bacteria, and that bacteria was syphilis, which is, as I told you, was a sexually transmitted disease, and he turned his attention towards that. And syphilis is also called spirochete, and it falls under Treponema pallidum. Syphilis is the disease, and the organism responsible for causing it is Treponema pallidum. Okay, so then he did Ehrlich did several tests in order to find out the treatment for syphilis. At that point of time, he had several institutes where he could do a good number of research. He had good number of research funds also. He also had a staff of highly competent collaborators. In fact, he had good colleagues. Then, so the first test announced in the spring of 1910 proved to be surprisingly successful in the treatment of a whole spectrum of disease. In the case of yours, a tropical disease akin to syphilis. So first of all, what they tried to do, he tried to, he did an experiment in the year 1910, and he did not a syphilis, but a similar kind of disease, tropical disease, similar to syphilis. There a single injection was sufficient in order to treat the disease. So it seemed like a magic bullet that at the first hit, it helped. It helped. And this is Paul Ehrlich, okay? But then later on, syphilis, it provoked a worldwide demand. Many people were suffering from syphilis. So a deadly weapon was very necessary at that point of time, a new weapon against the disease. So Ehrlich, however, would not yet release his discovery for general use, believing as he did that, the usual few hundred clinical tests did not suffice in the case of an arsenic preparation, the injection of which required special precaution. So he had a preparation, but then he was not so keen on clinical trials for that because it needed some precautions, because probably along with the bacteria, otherwise it will also harm the host. Okay, so in an unheard of transaction, the manufacturer with whom Ehrlich had collaborated closely, that is, this is the manufacturer, they released a total of 65,000 units gratis to physicians all over the globe. Although harmful side effects remained nominal in number, some envious competitors did not hesitate to attack Ehrlich. The libellious among them was given a jail. So what happened? Yeah, Paul Ehrlich, he found that this particular injection was very much necessary at that point of time, but it had some harmful side effects. But yet, that harmful side effect was not that much that it it could not be used in order to treat that infection. So what he did, that he spoke to the manufacturer and he released a total of 65,000 units of that particular medicine, and then he gave out to all the physicians all over the globe. So this was the greatest distinction which was bestowed on Ehrlich by the Prussian state, and he got a title. And then because of this discovery he made, along with numerous other honors, Ehrlich was presented with honorary doctorates by University of Oxford, Chicago, and Athens, and honorary citizenship by Frankfurt. So these are the different achievements that he had received during his time. And he finally died in the year 1914 because of a stroke. Okay, so these are the different contributions of Paul Ehrlich during his tenure.